Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this. This is MMA AM. It's half morning show, half mixed martial arts show, pretty much all bullshit. And the only thing bullshit in this chat right now is the fact that we couldn't do it 6 hours ago. So, Google, if you're watching right now, a fuck you to you. We could have done and wrapped this bad boy up 4 hours ago, but hey, what can you do? I'm joined by today, as it says in the title, you guys can read, you're not morons, but I'm joined by, let me give this name a go, Bobby Wombacker. Did I get it right?
That's close enough.
How do you properly pronounce it?
It's Wombacker.
Wombacker. Okay, well, I was close. And you're a mixed martial arts referee. Now, you can talk about yourself, and then I'll, because you haven't met me before. This is the first time conversation. So a brief backstory about me is, okay, I haven't actually followed mixed martial arts for that long. I've been a pro wrestling fan for about 15, 16 years. Whereas mixed martial arts, it was, okay, you join Kocosports.net, that's a combat sport website. So it's like, okay, I'll get into mixed martial arts. And so for the past 2 months now, it's like, okay, I'll do the podcast as well. So I've been really enjoying the shows. You're my first, obviously I have other podcast guests on, but you're my first interview. So it is a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day in the lovely vehicle that you're on. I hope you travel safely. I hope you have a safe travel. And thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So that's my story. So give a bit of a brief background story for people listening who may not be mixed martial arts fans because they have followed this YouTube channel for a few years and they know it's exclusively for pro wrestling, but now it's not. So give a backstory about yourself and obviously maybe your passion about what you love about mixed martial arts.
Sure. I've been refereeing for 6 years. It's taken me all over the United States. I started out training in the state of Utah and was forced on the sidelines for a bit. And to stay involved with the sport, I went to refereeing because I would have been out for a considerable amount of time. So that's how I got into refereeing and went and did classes with Herb and Kevin McDonald and Blake Grice, and Rob Hines, and all the certified trainers. Things like that cost a lot of money and a lot of time. So it's a very expensive hobby. Certainly in the red every year. So we don't do it for the money. We do it for the love and passion of the sport, and for keeping the fighters safe. That's what drives me. Is every time I get in the cage, I got a couple of athletes that are training and doing their best, and it's my job to make sure that they stay safe.
Now, has there ever been an incident where someone has got hurt in the cage when you're officiating?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fight. Every fight I do, generally there's some sort of injury.
Oh no, sorry. I meant like really hurt, like hospital, and then you like kind of you made a missed error or a misjudge. Sorry, so bad, or have you always done it? No, look, I know when to stop it because when I'm watching these things, I sometimes think, okay, you should stop it now. Like, and we'll talk a little bit about what happened at UFC 208 now. It'll be very interesting because the co-hosts I've had on this whole week, they've bashed it. And I want to get your thoughts on it more, but have you actually had an incident where you've gone, oh my God, is he okay? Kind of thing.
No, not in any of my fights. And I attribute that to the training that I've done and my skill set, being able to identify when things are in a position where it needs to be stopped. A lot of people, it's easy to judge, and as we talk about UFC 208 shortly, it's easy to judge and say that should have happened or that should have happened. For the most part, the referees are trained to do what they're supposed to do, and we're within 6 inches of the action. So typically, guys don't get injured or more injured due to the referee's negligence. There's been fighters carried out on stretchers in my fights, but it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with his opponent, inflicting the damage. So typically, it's not a referee's issue. Now, believe me, I've seen videos, and just like everybody else, where clearly referee probably could have done something a little different. But typically, it's the damage that's inflicted by the opponent.
Okay, that's interesting because I was just wondering what it was. And if there is like potential listeners out there, it's like, oh, mixed martial arts refereeing, that's pretty cool. How would they go about it so that they could possibly do that in the future? Was there a specific training? Was it a course? Or is it just, okay, you're an ex-MMA fighter and it's like, okay, I kind of know I can't do this anymore, but I still love the sport, so I want to do the refereeing. Is that how it is,
Sure.
or is it specific training? Can there be a person out there like right now who's like, you know what, I'm not cut for mixed martial arts. I'm not cut for it, but I would love to be in that cage with them, and I'd love to make sure they're safe. Is there a way for them to be able to do that?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, I'd love to win the lottery too, but that just doesn't happen. You know, to be a referee, it's a lot more than just throwing your hat in the ring and saying, "Hey, I can do that." You know, the first thing is you got to be in the gym and you got to know the holds and you got to know the moves and you got to know where the pressure points are and you got to know how to disassemble the moves. It's very detailed. I mean, a good referee, you know, can do anything that a fighter can do in the cage, and then also disassemble it to protect the fighter. So just there's a lot of people that think they can do it until they try to learn it and then take the courses, and the courses are pretty intense. For the ABC courses, there's a written part and then there's a physical part where you actually got to perform holds that the instructor tells you to do, and then you got to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then you got to be able to explain, okay, if so and so's in this hold, this is how I'm going to break it up, and this is how I'm going to keep the fighter safe to pass the course. So a lot of people take the test and don't pass. It's it's not easy.
Doesn't sound it. It really doesn't sound it. I was kind of thinking, when I look at them, I'm thinking, okay, they kind of leveled their way up. They got different certificates, and it looks like that's what they trained for their whole lives. Is there a few people who have been like, okay, this is what I want to do, or are the majority of the referees ex-MMA fighters?
Not all of us have fought. There are a few that have fought. More importantly, it's being able to possess a skill set to do the job. And there are some fighters that hang it up, and then they think they can referee, and they can't. They don't cut it. So it takes much more than just being a fighter to be able to do it. And like I said, there are a few of the high level guys that have fought MMA, but a lot of the referees are just training the jiu-jitsu, the different fields and stuff. So yeah.
What do you think then, with that in mind, separates a good referee from a bad referee?
Okay, well, the top thing is not second guessing yourself. If you went through the training and you know what you're supposed to do, you have split seconds to make those decisions. And if you're second guessing yourself, that's when someone can get hurt. That's when you can stop something that should not have been stopped. I had a trainer tell me back in the beginning, make sure you follow your procedures that you've learned, and you understand the rules. If you do that, then you should be good. And you'll see that the good referees and the bad referees that people point at or look at or post all the videos and stuff. It's being able to make that decision in the split second and knowing you're making the right decision based off of your training and the situation, being in the right position.
Okay. It is sometimes easy to forget how much pressure that is on the ref, because if he stops it, he's affecting the losing fighter. So I sometimes take for granted, okay, he stopped it, he shouldn't have done it, but that's his gut instinct, that's what he's been trained to do. And when you say it like that, I kind of feel a bit sympathetic towards the referee, sorry.
Well, I for one don't ask for sympathy, and I don't think any of my colleagues do neither. That's what we're in there to do, and we understand the pressure and the spotlight when you're in there, and how many eyes are on you, and what one mistake gets you. The thing that people don't realize is, you say a referee made a mistake, or they stopped it too early. Okay, and everybody wants to say he's a terrible referee. Well, what about the other 2,000 fights that he did or she did that were flawless? So people are real quick to jump on the shortcoming of one incident. And believe me, we all know that happens. We all, take it. You got to have thick skin. You know that you're going to get booed by 10,000 people. Hey, that's part of part of the game. You know, our top priority isn't, you know, what people think of us or what they say on the internet, you know, what's posted about us. You know, our top priority is the fighter safety. And if you're in there for anything other than that, then you probably shouldn't be a referee.
Okay, okay. So while we're on the topic of that, we'll go to talk about a bit of the UFC 208. Now, did you catch the main event of the UFC 208?
Absolutely.
So you saw Durandame punch Holly Holm 2 times after the buzzer. One after round 3, one after round 4.
Okay. I think it was 2 and 3 though.
2 or 3. Yeah, one. I haven't got the notes in front of me. One of them. What would you have done in that position? So if you were in that position, you were the ref for that match. What would you have done, or would you have done the exact same thing that the referee in New York did?
Okay. Well, let me set the stage first off. You know, we can all guess and second guess and judge and all that when you're watching it on a TV, because you've got the best camera angles at all times. You've got the perfect sound at all times. You can always hear the horn from the TV. The thing that you got to remember is if you're in the cage, you always can't hear the horn. You got to rely on, you know, you hear the 10-second clap, you know, there's 10 seconds left. You got to mentally be processing that, still keeping the fighter safe, getting closer to stop the round. There's times where you can't hear the horn. You know, something's going on and the hometown guy or girl is doing something and it gets extremely loud. And, you know, so that's what I'll say to set the stage. Now, for what happened there, the thing that everybody that's not a referee or studied the rules as far as what a referee does, the round does not end when that horn sounds. The round ends when the referee ends the round. So if the referee in that situation did not tell Durandame to stop, then those were not illegal shots. Now, I wasn't in there, so I don't know what was the conversation was or what the referee, you know, said, you know, anything like that. And you know, the referee that was in there is a very good referee. You know, you can reach out to him and ask him. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to respond. But the thing that we tell the fighters in the back before the fight, you know, we have a rules meeting, and if it's a big show, everybody does a one-on-one. You go and you talk to each individual fighter, explain the rules, you know, what's going on, what to expect, things like that. One of the things that we do tell them is, you continue to fight until I stop it. If I'm not stopping it, you continue to throw punches, you continue to do whatever you're doing. Because what you don't want them to do is to hit them, think that they were knocked out, turn around, walk away. We don't stop the fight, the fighter gets right up and then proceeds to win the fight. So, you know, I wasn't in there and didn't hear what, you know, the referee said, but what I will say is when he stopped it, she didn't continue to throw punches. And then at the second time that it happened, he did warn her, and I know that it was audible. You know, everybody could hear it because, you know, he was walking her back to the corner, and he was, you know, said, hey, you know, next time I'm going to take a point. You know, that wasn't, you know, whatever he said, but it was very clear that the second time was late in his eyes.
Okay, so you're kind of like giving a bit of leeway for round 2 because obviously, like you said, the fight round ends when the referee says it ends.
Correct.
I guess you weren't too happy with Mr. Joe Rogan going on a massive rant then at the poor official. And what was your opinion on Joe Rogan on the commentary all night with the referees?
Well, I mean, everybody's got a job to do, and you know, Joe Rogan is a commentator, and his job is to articulate the fight and to keep people listening and tuning in, and that's his role. Obviously, he's not a referee, you know, so sometimes those guys say stuff and it's not accurate. But it, you know, as referees, we don't say anything. We just, you know, we roll. It doesn't matter to us what a commentator or what a promoter or anybody says or thinks. As far as with the job that we did, you know, we're concerned what the commissions think, and obviously if the fighters are safe. So, yeah, what he said is, you know, what he said. And That's his opinion.
Okay. Well, so the way how the commission works, okay, so when, say, for example, you get a phone call and it's like that phone call is for you or an email to be booked for say, a show on Saturday, just any random show, would you get the text, email, phone call from the commission of a state, or would it be from a promoter?
Generally, it's the commission. Everything's run through the commission. There are a few states over here that the commission, you deal directly with a promoter, but that would be such a small percentage. As referees, we work directly with the state. So, like for instance, the referees that were used in New York or any card for the UFC, those are picked by the commission. The UFC doesn't pick the referees. Now, you'll see the same referees generally in a lot of the bigger fights because they're proven and commissions are comfortable, with their performances and things like that. You get the best of the best at the UFC level. People that are refereeing in the UFC aren't refereeing there by accident. So, UFC doesn't dictate who's the officials are. That is, for the commissions to decide. Judges as well.
So they could. So, for example, are you in specific towns, or are you under the commission radar? So you could be 1 week in the north, 1 week in the west, 1 week in the east, and 1 week in the south.
Each state, the 50 states, each one of those has an individual commission. So you've got to be licensed with that state's commission for them to use you. And they're selective on who they use, and they're selective on who they license. Some of them have different requirements, and some have a little bit looser requirements. But as a referee, you've got to be licensed in each of those states to be able to referee. So, like for instance, if a fight went to New York, if I wasn't licensed in New York, even if the UFC said, "Hey, we really want to use this guy" or whatever, I wouldn't be used because I'm not licensed with New York. So that's kind of how it works. We're independently working with each commission.
Okay, that's very interesting. What we got here? The new rules. With that, does that mean that, just for example, I know there's the finger rule. You can't have your finger out in front.
Right.
Just say you're involved in the fight and the new rules are there, and you see a fighter do it. Would you be a bit more lenient because, hey, look, this is a new rule, or will you still be strict as always that I don't give a crap if this is a new rule? I'm here. This is the rules. I'm here to officiate it.
Right. Well, what I would say there is, obviously, I would be no more lenient for that, for a new rule or an old rule, because it's a rule for a reason. We cover it in the back with the fighters. We explain it. We go through the new rules, make sure they understand it. If we'll use the fingers out, because that's what you brought up. If someone gets poked in the eye, that can end the fight. So we really can't be lenient and say, okay, well, we got a 6-month grace period for everybody to get accustomed to the new rules. No, it's a rule, and as a fighter, just like as an official, it's our job to know the rules. Well, it's the same thing for the fighters. It's that's their profession. They need to know the rules and know what can and can't be done. And then as officials, it's our responsibility to communicate that in the back as well and answer any questions that the fighters may have, so that when they enter the cage, we're all on the same page.
Okay. It's really this is really interesting. I don't know if there's hardcore MMA fans out there, they might be like, oh, what the hell is this? But for me, I'm kind of really new to this kind of stuff. So this stuff's all fascinating. I apologize if you're listening to this and you know this like the back of your hand, but for me, this is really interesting. I'm learning a lot. And another thing here, the referee breaking when they're on the floor. So, for example, they're on the floor, they're on the canvas, they're wrestling. And they did it a few times at 208 last Saturday, the referee breaking them and making them stand. What is the official rule for that? When and why are they allowed to do that?
Sure. There is no official rule of this is when you can do it or you can't do it. It's the referee's discretion. But what we're looking for, and we discuss this again in the back before the fighters come out with them, is you've got to constantly be looking to advance your position. If you're just laying there or you're just sitting there and just doing little shots here and there, you're not trying to improve your position, and you're not trying to end the fight. Now, if your shots are intended to end the fight, then you can stay there, and any referee will do that. But if you're just sitting full guard and you're just hitting him in the side and then hitting him in the arm, the referee's going to give a warning, say, hey, we need to work here, or we need to see some improvement, whatever that referee's commands are. They're going to warn them, and then they're going to typically, not always, but typically they'll come in with a more stern warning of, hey, I need to see some work or I'm standing you up. And then at that point, it's up to the fighters if they want to be stood up, they'll stay in that position. And the thing that people get confused on or whatever is, if fighter A is on his back and fighter B is on top of him, it's both fighters A and fighter B's responsibility to work. It's not fighter B's responsibility to work to keep that position, because the guy on the bottom may want to be on the bottom. He may be a jiu-jitsu black belt that's looking for a submission, and he's more comfortable on his back. So as a referee, you gotta be able to identify that and relate with both positions, and realize that the guy on the bottom may want to be there worse than the guy who wants to be on top. So is he doing anything to keep that position, or are you going to penalize him too by standing him up? So you go through it in the back, you give your warnings, and then you do what you got to do.
Awesome. So we got here. What are your, you're making the town, so you're dedicated. But what drives you? What's your goal, and what's your dream when it comes to being an MMA referee?
The goal obviously is to keep the fighter safe. No matter what city I'm in or what cage I'm in, my only goal and priority is making sure the fighters are safe. I would like for them to exit the cage the same way they entered the cage, which is generally impossible. But I'd like for them to walk out on their own. I'd like for them to get home to their family safely. But with that being said, it's still a fight. There's still going to be injuries, and you're going to get punched in the face. So those are the goals. As far as I guess my dreams or whatever you want to call it is, I just want to be the best that I can be in the cage at all times. And whenever I enter that cage, I want the fighters to recognize me and know that they don't have to worry about who's refereeing, because I know what I'm doing and they can just concentrate on the fight. So I guess that would be the ultimate goal in that aspect, is, for the fighters to be able to trust that you know what you're doing and they can concentrate on what they've got to do and what they're getting paid to do.
Now, in pro wrestling, the referees, a good referee is a referee who, when the audience is watching, sometimes you forget the referee's there.
Sure.
Is there a key, like when I'm watching the fights, is there a key for a good referee? Is it, okay, I don't really notice him until he steps in, and because he's not in the way? Because I think something that takes for granted is these guys are running across and going quite fast across the cage. Sometimes I bet it's quite difficult to get out of the way, especially in those smaller cages.
Sure. As referees, one of the things we say, a good night is when nobody knows I was in there. That means I didn't have to do anything as far as, no penalties, no getting in the way. The fighters were able to do what they were supposed to do. And like you said, I get involved when I had to stop the fight or to raise the hand or whatever it is. We referees, we want the cameras on us and get a few seconds on TV. Our goal is not to be seen if at all possible, and top priority is always fighter safety. So a good referee, in our sport, unlike wrestling, is sometimes we have to get into the camera because bad things happen quickly.
Yeah, because obviously in pro wrestling, if something bad happens, it's like, okay, cut, get, stop, medic out, blah, blah, blah. But the issue is there's no communication really with the wrestlers to the referee, because there was an incident about a year ago with a wrestler called Chris Jericho and Neville landed on his foot, pretty much broke his ankle. He was out of injury for like 6 months. So Chris Jericho rolled him up for the cover, 1-2, but the referee stopped. He stopped the count because his shoulder is up. Then Jericho gets up, starts screaming at the referee. This is all off script, saying, look, he's effing injured. He's fucking injured. He is fucking out. Why didn't you count to 3? And the referee's like, what? He's looking scared. He's like, why are you doing this? His shoulder was up. I'm calling it down the line. It's like, he's fucking hurt. He's like, I didn't see it. Has there ever been I don't know if there's been one in the history of MMA where a fighter's got really physically aggressive with a referee, or has that ever happened to you?
Typically, a fighter does not get aggressive. There's penalties if they do. If a fighter attacks me, they probably won't fight for a long time, if ever again. And the other thing to think about is, if any referee that you see in the cage, we're all trained as well. So, we may not look as imposing as some fighters may look, but I promise you, in an instant, we can protect ourselves until we can get help in there. And but very rarely, if ever, would a fighter, attack a referee just because of the ramifications that's going to happen. I mean, they're going to get suspended. They're going to lose money. They may never fight again. And that if that's their profession, they won't do it. So,
what about verbally? Do you get it much verbally? Like, for instance, if you end a round or end a fight, and then the fight's like, you shouldn't have ended the fight. Have you ever got that before?
Absolutely. The emotion's high in the cage. There's a lot of emotion involved. You get guys.
Oh, you've cut off.
And even with that 50% or so, they're fighting to win. So there's always emotion involved. And, the thing that I tell the fighters, and you'll hear a lot of the other referees do as well, is, if you've got a problem with something I do out there or a call I make, we'll discuss it in the back. You don't want to have TV or with a bunch of fans around. That's just not good for the sport.
Yeah.
So if they want to have a conversation, we'll go to the back and we'll talk to them one-on-one with their coaches.
Yeah, of course. I've always just wondered that. I've always wondered if there's ever been a time where a fighter's gone just absolute ballistic, pinned him up against the cage or anything like that. Because like you said, emotions are running high, and maybe they do it by accident. I've always just wondered if anything like that has ever happened.
I'm sure it has happened. I mean, I've seen the clips of the old, years ago stuff where that would happen. But nowadays, I would be hard pressed to see that actually happening. I'm sure it does happen on smaller local shows. Amateurs that, maybe that was their only fight that they're ever going to fight. Maybe, I don't know. But when you get to a professional rank, that stuff generally doesn't happen.
All right, that's good. That's good to know that very rarely happens in the big time. So, anything else really you want to talk about before we wrap this one up?
Nope. If you don't have any other questions, I'm good.
I've gone through my list. I appreciate you coming on. You can promote yourself. Where you on Facebook, Twitter, when your next refereeing is. You feel free to promote yourself.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Bobby Wombacker, all one word. On Facebook, I'm MMA referee Bobby Wombacker, and then on Instagram, it's referee_Bobby_Wombacker. I'm all over all the time. My next assignment is March 4th in South Dakota. So that's where I'll be. Now, I guess from my perspective, to do what I do, and I'm sure all the other referees would agree, it generally takes a strong support staff around you, support system. I've got wonderful kids that support me, and they love to come to the events. They're very supportive. I rely heavily on that. Obviously, I've got a very good person in my life. Shannon, supports me and gives me when things are down or up. She's the level head, and without that support system around me, it'd be much more difficult to be on the road. 2 to 3 weekends a month and away from your family and away from everything else. So, I appreciate that. I love my kids very much. I love Shannon very much, and that's what keeps me going.
Awesome, that's good to know, and I wish you safe travels. I appreciate you coming on the show. I apologize earlier on with the fucking bullshit that Google gave us, but hey ho, what is good has to wait. That in mind, I appreciate you coming on, because generally, like I said, I've only been like a really into MMA for a couple of months, and learning the referees aspect and the viewpoint from the referee for me personally is very interesting. And I know on the last few MMA AMs that we've been doing on the YouTubes, in the comments, it's been like, okay, I'm kind of new to MMA. I guess I can join with you. So these fans as well, who are just getting into the sport as well, can now be like, oh, okay, that's from the referees as well. So I appreciate you coming on. Maybe you can come back in a few months to
Sure.
maybe see if my knowledge is a bit more better, then we can compare a bit more.
Well, and if you get any questions, people are more welcome to send me questions. I answer every question I get. But if you get questions and you want to bring me on to, answer, if you get a handful of questions or whatever, just let me know. I'll always try to make time, sooner than later to, get on and answer what people are asking.
Awesome. I'll make note of that. I appreciate that. And everyone listening, check us out at Kocosports.net. That's KOCO Sports.net. It's where the world goes to kick ass, home for combat sports, and above all, where it's okay to be a passionate fan. Appreciate if you're watching us live on YouTube right now. Appreciate if you're watching us post live on YouTube. Appreciate if you're watching us on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, however you're watching us. Appreciated. So until next time, Bobby, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll be catching your asses down the line.